All right, let's just listen to Chuck Todd. Ron Johnson went on with Chuck Todd on Meet the Press. Look, the CBO came out, and there's a couple of competing beliefs out there right now. One is that this is all some type of grand scheme by Mitch McConnell. He knew he would not be able to pass this out of the Senate. He doesn't even want to go to conference because that would be too long. He wants to get directly to tax reform and is getting pressure from different areas to do so. And so he wanted a quick no rather than a long, drawn-out one. And so you're seeing people from, theoretically, from the so-called moderates in the Republican Party to the so-called conservative ideologues. Now, I think they're all full of it, frankly. And the question is that the case, or are we seeing Mitch McConnell, who's the CBO numbers, the only thing that came in good for him was it was $350 billion of deficit reduction. Now, why is that good for him? Because it means he has a couple $100 billion to play with. Remember how it went in the House, right? It was dead. And then it was the guy from New Jersey, McCarthy, who came up with an $8 billion of opioid treatment, I think it was, more subsidies. So you now have $200 billion to deal with all the different complaints you see across the board. So as much as Susan Collins is coming out there and saying, in her tweets, oh my gosh, I'm so worried about rural hospitals in Maine, hint, hint. And you've got Rob Portman coming out going, but opioid treatment, hint, hint.
Well, is his kid addicted to opioids? That might be real
probably.
If that was true.
Well, but the idea being like, you got this pool of money, man. Spend it. Here's Ron Johnson, who is really concerned about the process. But maybe someday the process will be better. Here he is explaining why covering pre-existing conditions is so problematic.
We know why these premiums have increased. I am reminded I remember President Bill Clinton talking about Obamacare as a crazy system. And he started talking about the people that are busting it, sometimes working 60 hours a week, and then they're left with premiums that have doubled and their coverage cut in half. Those are the forgotten men and women in this entire health care debate, but we know why those premiums doubled. We've done something with our healthcare system that you would never even think about doing, for example, with auto insurance, where you'd require auto insurance companies to sell a policy to somebody after they crash their car. States that have enacted guaranteed issue, which is the guarantee for pre-existing conditions, it crashes their market.
Yeah, okay, so what he's saying here, and he's saying it in a rather polite way, is that, look, when you have to have insurance that actually covers people who have a higher likelihood of getting sick in the future, insurance doesn't work in the private market because they can't make the profits they want. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and jettison that or make it really difficult for those people to come in. And then we'll be able to bring down premiums because we'll be offering insurance to the people who need it least. 20% of the population bears 80% of healthcare costs. 5% bear 50%. The problem is you don't know where you fit in this. And one of the ways the insurers keep out the sick people or the could be sick in the future people is they eliminate certain parts of our society that statistically have a greater propensity to get sick. And that is people who've been sick before. And so you eliminate guaranteed issue. Yeah, you can bring down premiums because you're not having to pay out. Excuse me, I must have Parkinson. According to some folks.
That's such a good stretch.
But the other way you can bring down premiums is to also get rid of essential benefits. And the other way you can bring down premiums is to provide lifetime and yearly caps. In fact, if you provide nothing with your health insurance, you could bring premiums really low because your payouts are going to be virtually nothing. So there is Ron Johnson comparing health insurance and really actually making an argument as to why there shouldn't be a private insurance market, because they can't cover it. It's one thing to say, hey, we're going to charge you a lot if you're a bad driver, because your life doesn't depend on that coverage. And your livelihood might, but you're not going to go bankrupt. 50% of bankruptcies are not going to be a function of having to pay for more expensive car insurance. It's a fundamentally different thing. And he's making a very strong argument as to why the private insurance industry is really not a real business model that works. Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos